Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course is one of the longest-running tracks on the GRIDLIFE calendar. And before GLTC, it was just HPDE and TrackBattle Time Attack. But now with a new format, the NOS Energy TrackBattle Championship, something new for something old. Welcome back to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. I'm Kyle Heyer, joined by Greg Kramer. Greg, welcome back for the NOS Energy TrackBattle Championship. Qualifying one begins now.
Looking forward to this. Obviously, we've already seen that the track is pretty quick based on what we saw in GLTC qualifying. In the morning practice, the Sunday Cup cars were within, the record is a 148.8. They turned a 149 flat this morning, so we are on the cusp already of a record. That was the number 130 of James Smith in the pit, getting around here pretty quick. So I think we're going to see track records fall in this session.
I hope so. The coverage of GRIDLIFE Mid-Ohio Meet is brought to you by Hyundai N. GRIDLIFE Live is powered by Hyundai N, Never Just Drive, and Falcon, the official tire of GRIDLIFE TrackBattle, and the official tire of the Falcon Sunday Cup category. Let's have a look at our track map here before we get lap times turning and underway. This is a 2.26 mile course, Greg. It is 13 corners, built in the 1960s. It hasn't changed a whole lot since then. It is really one of the original American road courses, and it's just a great lap. About a minute and 40 seconds for the GLTC cars, a little under that, but it's a quick lap and it's a flowing one as well.
It is, and it really follows the contours of the Ohio countryside here, and that makes it really interesting. There's no massive elevation change or drops, but there's lots of abrupt elevation change. Makes it exciting. None of that, though, in turn one. It's just flat. It's really quick under that bridge exit. Then you climb a little bit up here into the keyhole, and it's key to get out of the keyhole well because of that long straight in front of you, but it falls away as you do. Really, critical in terms of balance there.
And then a long run down through turn 3, the kink, into turn 4, your best passing opportunity. Look out for China Beach. It's not where you want to take a vacation, just on the outside of that corner. 5 over Madness, into 6, 7, and 8. Over 9, there's a crest there where you fall down into Thunder Valley, and then up to turn 11, a pretty flat, high-speed corner that leads into the carousel. That will challenge the balance of any race car here on this 2.26 mile lap.
Yeah, this is a driver's track, and obviously that one straight from 2 down to 4, it's not a hugely long straightaway. So big power here is nice, but it's getting out of the turns, but more importantly is maintaining your speed through the turns. And either you have to have aero or you have to be a really good driver to achieve that, and it's usually a little bit of both.
Yeah, certainly. And up first on track, of course, are our Falcon Sunday Cup competitors as they begin their flying laps around here. One of our slower categories, Greg, but it certainly is one of our more fun categories. The goal here, 25-to-1 power to weight. It is a dyno series where they will put you on the dyno if you think you're overpowered to weight. But you carry so much momentum, and it is incredibly competitive this season. And that 130 car is one of the fastest drivers all season long. James Smith behind the wheel as they come out of turn 13 and begin putting lap times down.
Yeah, this is really what I would call the bang for the buck category, right? Yeah, you can get out there, you can get on a track, you can drive this car as fast as it goes. And when you get a car to the limit, that's what you want to do as a driver. And you can get these cars to the limit here without huge expense. And that is what really makes this attractive. And the fun thing about these cars, Kyle, is because you don't have that massive power and you're thus not carrying these huge speeds into corners, this then becomes how much speed can I not lose going into the corner and maintain all the way through it. So these cars are momentum cars, and these cars are all about flow. It's not acceleration and brake. It's breathe off the throttle, flow speed everywhere you can, and you really dance on the edge here. And Smith already at a 149.9, and that was really just sort of his out lap here. So he's going to be somebody to keep a really close eye on here. 49.0 in that morning session, 48.8 track record, and I think we might see him right. Whoa! And as I say that, well,
look out. Come on, blow it down there, bud.
That's what happens when that's exceeding that limit of speed, momentum, and flow there.
Yeah, he went chasing that quite a bit. And while he is the fastest on track currently, he's third in the championship standings this season, 77 points to Jacob Abbott's 82. Now, Jacob Abbott has 97 points, but NOS Energy TrackBattle Championship is a 4-round best of. So basically, Jacob's worst result got bumped. So four rounds of 4 rounds, it's Jacob Abbott, Chris Rice, 82 to 81 points. Both of those drivers are here, and James Smith is just 4 points behind them and has only run 3 rounds so far. So all a consideration as we now head into, this is I believe the 8th round of this season's championship. We also calculate points during the club weekends, which are not live streamed as well. They've had a couple of rounds since we last saw them at Gingerman Raceway and Midwest Festival, so lots of calculations and numbers floating around here as we get into the midst of the season. And James Smith is coming down pit lane to self-report that off, which is what you're supposed to do when you have an off, as the 170 of Pierce goes to the top of the board at a 149.7.
That's a new track record.
And Jimmy Rauch to the top, a 149.702, new track record again.
Yep, I think this is just going to be the pattern we're going to see here. And you know, obviously, we had talked about it in the GRIDLIFE Touring Cup session previously. You were alluding to it. There's been some areas on this track that have been repaved. There's been areas where they've added some curbing, and it just allows you, one, the new pave, a little bit more grip, and that extra curbing, it allows you to just flow that little bit more speed if you're willing to use that curbing.
Yeah, certainly, and you're carrying so much speed, or you're not slowing down a lot here. So the more speed you can carry, the faster you're going to go. 18 Sunday Cup cars in this group. That's a ton.
That's phenomenal.
One of the biggest fields we've had in Falcon Sunday Cup history here. Big jump over the curbs for the leading car right now. And there's a handful of cars, Michael Ross Smith in the 395 as well, who is currently 4th in the standings with 73 points. Also only 3 rounds so far this season. Chris Wolf, 6th in points. He's down in 16th at the moment. So just lots of points shuffling could happen at a critical stage of the season where we have a big field, which means that competition is going to be even more fierce. There's the number 92, though, Brad Smith, 10th in the points, only 2 rounds so far this season, once at Gingerman for the club weekend at Rev Up, and then once at Autobahn Country Club in Joliet.
Well, and kind of interesting contradiction sometimes is that the bigger the field you have, the worse your opportunity to lose points if you have a bad weekend, because more people are there to take them, right? So if you're off a little bit, and if there's 10 cars there, you'd be 10th. Well, that's okay, but if there's 20 cars there and you're off and you're 16th, that's a big point swing that you can lose. So it's all pretty crucial here to be able to get out and get after it here. And you know, again, this place, just these quick undulations. And even turn 11, you know, when we see that again, as you come into 11, it's just this gradual climb, but it's a blind turn into the apex, and it's really easy to overshoot that corner. And so precision, when you're on the absolute edge everywhere, precision is huge.
Jimmy Rauch in the Honda Civic slowing on down. He is the fastest driver here in this session. And I don't know that Jimmy Rauch has actually done a round with us this season. No, he has. That was back at where was that? That was back at Rev Up at Gingerman Raceway 2 weeks prior to Midwest Festival. Only 1 round on the season, but that car was good there, so I expect it to be as good. Kevin Gu also in the 463 we saw back at Midwest Festival. He's 4th right now. Chris Rice, another solid lap time at a 49.7. But all of this is for our top 5 qualifying effort. That's the goal, is to be 5th or better heading into our podium sprint tomorrow afternoon.
And here you see them working. This is it's interesting here because this turn right here, turn 6 and 7, takes you up, and there's another one of those very abrupt up and over rises that then falls away on the other side, and it's a critical one because this one can, if you get it wrong, you're literally out of position to go into turn 9, which is one of the trickiest corners out there. So that is what's going to make this really fascinating to see here, who can really dial this up as we're watching here the number 156 of Jansen, and driving that Mini Cooper. And taking a look here at these graphics, remember how this all plays out. This is qualifying. You get 3 rounds of qualifying, and the top 5 at the end of the combined qualifying runs end up going into the podium sprint, which is a 1 car at a time competition for the win on the weekend. Now, records can be set anywhere, right? Anytime.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Yep. So that record is good for 1 point on the weekend, which, you know, that's helpful, but it's not the end-all be-all. You need to be in that podium sprint if you want to get 15 points or more this weekend. So it's really critical that you get in. And every time we do this, I always talk about this cut line from Gu back to best. Look at this, 1/10 of a second or less, of 149.87 to a 149.953. That's the margin right now, but the goal is all weekend long to work your way into that. Michael Ross Smith, it would be a a real bad weekend for him if he can't get into that podium sprint. Same with Brad Smith, Ryan Mukherjee, all drivers that have been up there in the mix before.
And look who went to the top after he had that off, went into the pits, made an adjustment, came out, and Smith right to the top in that number 130, the Honda Fit, and up by a couple of tenths right now over Rock.
Yeah, really good lap there for James Smith in that number 130. And it's a busy session out there. There's a lot of cars. It's a constant stream. And, well, speaking of streams, let's talk slipstream here at a track like Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Really where you're going to feel that is really from 1 to 2, but mostly from 2 to 4 is a great opportunity to make up a whole bunch of time. And I think that 909, by the way, the Mazda 2, I think that's Becky Burton behind the wheel of that the Mazda 2 in 12th at the moment, having a really solid run. The Robertson Racing colors on the side of it. And heading up over turn number 5. And this is an example of a car that's not a Honda Fit. That certainly can. Is there a Toyota Camry out there behind her? What is that car? It is. Or is that a Camry or Corolla? What is that? No, it's a Mazda.
It's a Mazda. Is that a Mazda? Would that be a Mazda 2 or 3?
I'm not sure. I didn't get a great look at it. I thought it looked like the 2005 generation Camry. I was like, what is that?
Yeah, it really did.
Speaking of run anything, I suppose.
Well, you could do it as long as it fits here.
Up into, so this is the 2.
That's the Mazda 2,
yeah. But a great car. You see, these cars are really similarly prepped to B-Spec, and you see this car run in B-Spec along with the Minis and the Fiestas and that sort of thing. A Ford Fiesta, not a car we see a lot of, but also a pretty capable car. It's been on podium a couple weekends here in the past, but is it Protege? Is that what that is?
I think it just ducked into the pits.
Oh, that's the Escort ZX2.
Oh, okay, yep, correct.
That is always a car up in the mix. That's Lucas Urban, who was a podium sprint competitor back at Carolina Motorsports Park. And if you recall, he had an issue on the outlap and didn't really get to compete. So that's a driver we'll have to keep our eye on. We know that car is fast, and I think he's better than 13th. So I think we'll see him climb up the order this weekend.
Of that from what we've seen previously.
So qualifying continues here as we head down the back straightaway. There's another look at that Mazda. I didn't get a number on the side of that car. It is the 181, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, but there's no name attached to it in on the timing and scoring. It's a team name, so that won't do us a whole lot of good. But working our way through turns 4 and 5 now with Falcon Sunday Cup qualifying. Chris Rice jumps up to second place at a 149.696. That's a real solid lap now for the 91 to jump his way up. And the cut line from advancing to chasing still remains under a tenth of a second between Kevin Gu and David Best at the moment. Brad Smith and Michael Rossmith just outside. Mike Jansen jumps up to a 150.447. That's an improvement on his best lap of the session so far. Matt Dietlin also in the 488. We've seen him up in the top mix before in the NOS Energy Track Battle Championship, down in 14th so far. And heading down towards turn 4 here, Greg, I'd imagine that we're getting close to a checkered flag, and so this might be your last opportunity to start a flying lap before we throw checkers here. And you will not get another opportunity to qualify until tomorrow morning here in the NOS Energy Track Battle Championship, which is a really prime session for lap time.
Yeah, nice and cool. Weather looks great for it. And obviously heat, it could, this track is susceptible to temperature change and cloud cover change. And so sun and heat make this place grease up pretty good. Does that with most tracks, but this one's pretty susceptible to it. And so that morning, when the track's a little cooler, you can push the tires harder. Everything on the car just works better, including the engine. And so you just get that little bit extra power and can really go over it. Here's what I'm talking about with that turn 11. And you can see it's not a huge climb, but it's just enough that as you're coming up to it, you can't see the exit at all. And it's just another one of these really tricky corners here. And this last corner here, the carousel, if you want to start a lap, if you're have decided, all right, I'm going to cool the tires off and then I'm going to start a lap, you'll actually diamond that corner a lot so that you can get on the throttle a lot sooner coming through there to build more speed down the straight, and then you'll drive the normal fast line through there at the end and just see if that can't get you that extra tenth or two.
Adam Morgan, we just saw roll through turn 1, the 20th driver on the racetrack here in Falcon Sunday Cup. This is, I think, one of the biggest
turnout.
biggest classes that we've ever had, or I guess the biggest entry for Sunday Cup. One of them. I think we've had maybe a couple more at one other event, but it just really is a great turnout this weekend, and this is going to be a pretty thrilling fight. Only a quarter of them will move on to that podium sprint, as indicated by the advancing and the chasing. But this is going to track their best lap time throughout the weekend, so there are 2 more opportunities to either get bumped from this or to advance into that list tomorrow morning and early afternoon. And then that podium sprint late in the day is where you will run your top 5 drivers in order to aim for that podium. The 909 car up to 8th place, strong run there, and just 2/10. Look at all the cars that are in the 150 range, Greg. All of those drivers down to Rodriguez in the 357 are within a second of advancing into the podium sprint. Incredibly competitive, just thousandths between most of them.
Well, yeah, exactly. And a number of them, if they find 2/10, they're in at this stage. And even though you think, okay, tomorrow's session, that's going to be the quicker one, you don't dare not put in a lap and get as fast a lap as you can in any session in case you have a mechanical, some sort of an issue. That's where you can run into some problems.
Yeah, certainly. So mechanical's real bad in this format. You really got to stay consistent, at least over one of these qualifyings and the podium sprint. But checkered flag is in the air, and that will conclude our Falcon Sunday Cup session. One car slowing on the front straightaway here. That is the 175 of Adam Morgan, who's trying to get out of the way here, but as the drivers come to the checkered. And being released onto the racetrack right now is going to be our Falcon Club TR competitor. So our second and final spec tire category, Greg. Of course, the Falcon RT 660 is the official tire of GRIDLIFE TrackBattle, and we run that 660 compound. Now it's a spec tire width, as it is in the Sunday Cup group. Everyone's on the same shoes, and you go out there and you compete in a class that is a little bit more of a builder's class than the Sunday Cup group is. Yeah,
it really is a fun class. Probably the closest thing, wouldn't it be, to a touring car category. And believe me, they get around here well. And it's nice because, you know, the guys that are a little bit more engineering oriented, a little bit more tinkery, if you will, they can actually do something with the Club TR cars. Still within a pretty strict envelope, though, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly. And of course, it's not a power to weight or anything like Sunday Cup is. It's a builder's class, and it's pretty close to GLTC in terms of the overall pace of the car. But basically, the idea is it's 2.5 liters or under. Non-turbocharged, or 1.6 liter and under turbocharged. Okay. You can engine swap the car, but you cannot open the engine. It has to remain stock internals. And beyond that, there are some aero rules: 3-inch splitter, wings up to a certain size. You can't transplant an engine front to rear or rear to front, or do a drivetrain swap, but you do see front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive cars compete on a pretty level playing field here. You get a lot of cars that you're familiar with seeing at track days: S2000s, Miatas, BRZs, FRSs, 86s. The GR Corolla fits right into this category now. So there's a lot of cars that are attainable that fall into this category stock, or you can build a car that you'd like to build.
And again, trying to, you know, create all the different variables in terms of classes, so that people with those same variables in terms of budget are able to get out and compete. And you know, Sunday Cup, you know, that's the one where if you really don't have a lot of engineering expertise or interest, you can just buy the car, don't have to do much to it, go out and drive. Here, you buy the car, but you can tinker with it a bit if that's what you like to do. But it's still, compared to the you know, GT, Street GT, mods, and of course Unlimited class, much less of a budget buster for sure. And but just a little bit more pep.
Yeah, a little bit more pep. And honestly, some of these cars are incredibly fast. We look across lap times over the course of a weekend. Often the Club TR cars, the front end of them, are some of the fastest cars of the weekend. We especially see that at places like Autobahn Country Club, where power is useful, but handling is better. And this is a track that you've already mentioned so far a couple times this weekend that doesn't really benefit having a boatload of power. You can outdrive this track if you don't have a lot of power, and that makes it a fun place to drive a car like this. You can really ring them out, too, on the back straightaway, and get to pretty reasonable high speeds as well.
Well, the interesting thing, a track like this, when you've got a car with a lot of power, And if you haven't mastered the art of momentum and carrying speed into a corner, when you have a ton of power, what often happens is those drivers will overslow for a corner because they're coming from such a high rate of speed that they just brake too hard and they don't roll speed through the corner. So as they come out of the turn, they don't have that exit speed, and so they're at a deficit all the way to the next braking zone. And so, in my opinion, if your goal is to run unlimited in track battle, start here and learn how to roll speed and carry momentum through a corner, because then that carries through to anything you're driving, even a massively high-powered unlimited car. You understand that it's easy to overbrake, and you'll make your braking work so that at the apex of a turn, essentially, you're going as fast as you can there and not needing to accelerate through it because you've overslowed.
Yeah, certainly. And there's Mario Moroni in the 727 Honda Civic. We've seen him really at the limit a couple of times this season. At CMP, we had him go around for a loop. At Gingerman Raceway, we saw him go around for a loop. He is getting all he can get out of this EG generation Honda Civic, and certainly putting on a show while doing it. It really has been a lot of fun to watch him rip this car around. So he's working his way through 6 and 7, and next time he comes around, he will be the first driver to lay down a lap time. We'll get the times up on screen for you to check out. But again, we're at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course for round 4 of 6 in GridLife's 2023 Festival Tour. Just 2 rounds remain in that after this event. Circuit Legends at Lime Rock Park in 2 weeks' time, and then in October, WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca is our season finale for GridLife competition this year. A couple other club rounds along the way: Willow Springs, Heartland Park, just some exciting things coming up on the horizon here as Mario Moroni rounds the final corner and heads up onto the front straightaway to set a lap time.
We'll see what kind of times are popping up, but just to give you an idea here of how quick these cars, these Club TR, in practice, 93 cars went out total, and that's including the Unlimiteds and the track mods and all of that. 93 cars went out. Marco's time was the fastest in Club TR, was 37th. So it isn't like they're just way at the end. I hope that was just brake lock.
Yeah, I think it was. Mario, known for real charge in those braking zones. He definitely pushed the limit into the keyhole. A bit of smoke heading off into the corner. And
this is impressive because his time this morning, Kyle, was a 140.66, and he's already at a 37.7.
That's crazy.
So they made some serious tweaks on that car.
Yep.
And figured some stuff out. Track record is a 35.2.
So a little ways to go in that regard. But Fez Bobber, by the way, in this yellow GR86, been working with developing for this chassis. You see the Marizo Motorsports logo on the side. New company that Fez has started to work on some componentry for these GR86 and BRZ chassis, the 2nd generation car. A couple of years ago here, he had a similarly colored Scion FRS that had an incident at turns 4 and 5, kind of tore up the whole side of that thing, and it was missing an eye, had the headlight missing for a little while. But he's back in the GR86 and has been running really well as far as points are concerned. And as I shift over to my points document, Fez is 5th in the standings with only 3 rounds. It's 4 for Dana Basinski, Mario Moroni, and the Dead Boys Racing FRS, the 880, with Jason Wynn behind the wheel. So Fez is P5 with 53 points, but Dana Basinski, who is not here this weekend, has 88 points total. He is the championship leader.
All right, so opportunity for everybody chasing him to make something up. Just watching Fez there as he came through turn 11, lots of rotation, and he turned in, and I think he realized I turned in just a little late, and got that rotation out of it. So now he knows, all right, just turn in just a smidge earlier and flow that speed, and he will, every lap you turn is always a learning exercise, no matter how good you are. And especially when you've had these little pavement changes you've talked about, the additions to the curves where you can maybe run out a little bit. And it isn't so much that now they're saying, okay, run to the edge of that curb, because that's what was happening before. It was just that people were going to the edge of the previous curbs and just digging big holes on the back side of those curbs. So now they've added these little bits of red as a guide to say you don't want to get much past this now. and hopefully that will work. But we're certainly seeing drivers utilizing every piece of racetrack, especially down here. As you get through turn 5, there are a lot of people on that inside curb are really cutting that one abruptly.
Yeah, the curbs here are pretty flat.
Like that.
You can get up on top of them.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of rippling or rumbling on them. They're pretty flat surface curbs, which means you can be pretty aggressive in your attack of them. As Evan Weeder, by the way, jumped to the top of the board at a 137.507. Evan McLaren just outside of that cut line at a 139.158. There's Weeder, by the way, in that number 531. And his story in grid life competition, if we go back a couple of years, back to 2020,
Right.
He was driving in an HPDE, and someone behind him lost brakes going into turn 11 at Gingerman and completely destroyed the right side of a similar EG hatchback that he had. He did a rebuild process after that and has since been with us in the NOS Energy Track Battle Championship and has been a fierce competitor and a driver certainly that is a contender week in and week out. So he's got a similar story. I don't know what it is with drivers in Civics having comeback stories here in grid life. Let's stop doing that, Greg. Let's keep them in one piece for once.
Yes, and we're not saying let's shift to another car. Let's just stop.
Just stop crashing
Let's just
them.
stop totally here.
Or being crashed, I guess, in a lot of instances.
And you know, I think something that as we're watching this and keeping an eye on things, we need to really just comment on. Well, before I do that, how about right now the top 5 in this category covered by 0.3 of a second?
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievably close. But I was going to say, and you can see in the graphic in that upper right-hand corner, the NOS Energy Drink Grid Life Track Battle Time Attack. How cool is it, and how it really speaks awfully highly of Grid Life and their Time Attack Track Battle program to have a company like NOS Energy Drink say this is worthy of putting our name on. And every time that these cars take to the track, every time that Grid Life shows up at any venue, they do everything they can to make sure that they keep living up to that. And I'll tell you, with this revised format and everything this year, it has taken on a whole new level of excitement.
Oh, Fez Bomber off at turn 11 as he's had a slip and slide. He's back rolling again, but you said he was chasing some rotation.
I wonder if he turned in a little too early that time.
Yeah. But that car is not shy to get sideways. We've seen that pass. But to your point about NOS, they have a presence here in the paddock this weekend. If you're at the racetrack, free NOS. Walk up and grab one. That's always great. They've got a couple different flavors to choose from. And partners in Advanced Auto Parts with the Advanced Auto Parts Pit Stop here that's showing the live stream. Really great program that they've got for parts pickup as well. If you need something, you can order it and they will bring it to you here at the racetrack. So great initiative from Advance. Sunoco, a great partner with us here this season. Drivers can order fuel E85R right to the racetrack in barrels or in cans. Really neat partnerships. Valvoline's here this weekend giving out driver buckets that have gear oil in them and all sorts of goodies inside. Just really neat initiatives from all of the partners and some new contingencies. Let's talk about the Falcon contingency. For a long time running, cash prizes for those that break track records and win or get on the podium here in Club TR and Sunday Cup. So cash prizes are available there.
Huge.
And this season, we've now got a Momo partnership where drivers that run the Momo logo on their car are eligible for a seat from Momo up to a certain value if they win the season championship. And this weekend in Club TR, the fastest driver will get a Momo seat as a prize as well.
Seriously?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, there's nothing better than a truly usable award. Cash is always great, obviously, but a seat? I mean, come on, that's awesome. Look at that. We've now got 2 guys that have dipped into the 36s here. The 531 of Weeder has gone on 136.832, and Houghton on the number 330 has gone on 136.9. So that they're starting to spread that top 5 out just a little bit, but it's because the guys up in the front finding even more speed. So that's impressive stuff.
Well, I had to clarify this, but that is James Houghton behind the wheel.
It is.
330.
I was wondering too. Yeah.
It confused me even, but I did check, and it is James Houghton behind the wheel, and already in the advancing portion. Now he ran a Mercedes AMG with us at Watkins Glen, made it into the podium sprint there. Now trying to accomplish the same thing in Falcon Club TR. Here's a cool looking car. Is that the 99 Reeves behind the wheel in a Mazda MX-5? Looks like it.
Yeah, a convert as well.
Yes,
Gotta love that.
Yep, required to have roll bars because these first 2 generations of MX-5 didn't really have a lot of safety structure over the roof, but he does have that. I did see, I think it was Ben Carter off heading into the keyhole. He was pulled off to driver's right, maybe with a mechanical issue. So we'll keep our eyes on that. But as far as the advancing chasing line, look at that. It's a 1/10 of a second, just like in Sunday Cup, Greg.
And we see that all the time. It's just incredibly close here. And that number 99, right now he is running in the 22nd spot, Reeves is. But having as much fun as you can have right now, just out there. Beautiful day, sun top down, and giving that car some serious oomph at this stage. But yeah, that margin is so close. It's Weider, Houghton, Maroney, Granberg, and Babar. That's your top 5. That would, again, at this point, advance to the podium sprint. And the podium sprint is the one that decides the trophies and who wins the weekend. So that's where you want to be. But again, it's not just from this session. There will be 2 other qualifying sessions, and it's the combined times. Fastest of the 3 sessions for each driver.
Mario Moroni, I think, just bumped Fez out.
He did.
So that shifts that cut line 1 position again. So Fez has got some work to do as Jason Wynn goes for a spin at turn number 11.
Yeah, that is a tricky corner. It really is. It's one of those corners. Oh,
look out.
Nice catch. That could have been ugly.
Yeah.
But, you know, to me, this has always been one of the underrated corners because everybody, you know, you look at the map and even on TV from the most angles, it looks just flat. And it's not. And it is a really quick corner that comes in up and sets you up for the last 2 turns. So you want to get through there well. And it's a tricky corner. And we're seeing what's playing out here. And actually, I think it was McLaren who jumped up in the 5:14.
It was. You're right. It was McLaren to a 1:36.892. Still a ways off the track record. I think it might be a bit too warm to chase that record today. But tomorrow morning we could see that record. Q2 historically this season has been the session to set the track record in.
And yes, obviously McLaren is not running one here in this category. That is an Acura Integra 2001 that he set that really impressive time. I mean, he was outside of the top 5 and just laid down a great lap and jumped in there second right now.
You know, surprisingly, there's not a lot of 4-cylinder under 2.5 liter McLaren V8s floating around.
Yeah, just don't see a lot of them.
No, not a lot. I think Jason Conakry might have one that's 7 cylinders at the moment.
Probably early 60s in Formula One.
Right, yeah. It's been a little while. But, yeah, so cars continue to work their way around. Still no checkered yet, so we're still green for Falcon Club TR for a little while longer. Nice long sessions here to get some good track time in and get some nice clean laps. And Johnson in the 410 S2000 up into the top 10 here. Todd Cayley, by the way, used to run with us in GLTC. His car is here. The 611 of Ben Carter owns that car now. But as far as Cayley, he's now in a 2022 Subaru BRZ. So got a little bit of a newer car, but his older GLTC car still running here in Club TR, fully caged and everything, which is always great. And one of the compromises on the rules in all of our Grid Life classes is there's a lot of rules about having to keep certain interior pieces intact, but Grid Life allows you to remove anything in the vicinity of that would prevent you from installing safety equipment like a roll cage or roll bar or something of the sort. So if the rules require a dashboard, the dash must be there, but you can cut out sections or have to move a section to fit in a roll cage or roll bar in the pursuit of safety, encouraging drivers to make that safety adjustment. Because you get to cars, I mean, Club TR cars are fast, but you get into street GT and you know, street modified, you're getting cars that are doing 160, 170 on straightaways in some cases, and that's just real fast.
Yeah, hugely fast, yeah. And obviously, at that level in particular, safety becomes preeminent, and always have to be keeping an eye on that, just keeping an eye here. You know, with that big jump by McLaren pushing Babar out and Granberg at that 137.3, Babar, he needs to find 4/10. That's going to be a tough one today.
That's going to be tough. He's following Jared Garcia now in the 515 S2000. Jared's always a good chat in the paddock. He was at Road America last week, which was a non-points event as part of our NASCAR support race schedule. But the 515 of Jared Garcia is back with us here this weekend and leading Fez Bobber, but I think you're right about finding 4/10. It's going to be tricky, especially now that his tires are going to be pretty hot and bothered by that spin that he had. So it might be a bit of a lost cause to try to get some time, but you can certainly learn things right now, and you can apply those for tomorrow morning.
Well, and that's the thing. You know, obviously you need to be big picturing it, and as you've said, it's traditionally been the second session, which is the Saturday morning session, where the track records are set and those really fast times happen here. But that doesn't mean you don't go out and use this for practice, as you said, because if you've got you and your crew are good with data, you can certainly go out and learn in this and say, all right, if the conditions are like this tomorrow, if we do this, that's going to give us a little bit of an edge. And for him, after that off, he came into the pits and he had a lot of grass up inside the radiator intake. So I'm pretty sure they wanted, we've got a safety vehicle moving out on track as the checker flag comes out.
Yeah, I think that will probably be to go get Ben Carter from over inside the keyhole. So that will be where that safety truck is on its way to go get. As far as checkered flag, though, here comes Evan Weeder one more time across the stripe, picks up the checkered, and it will not be an improvement. And Fez Bobber was not able to improve either, but Granberg hanging on to that top 5 spot for now to 137.322. There is Ben Carter. He was able to refire. Oh, no, that's still the same spot. I thought he had refired, but that's actually in the chicane leading up to the keyhole.
Yep,
it looked like it's part of the track because it's part of the track we're not using.
Exactly.
So that will checker Falcon Club TR, and it'll be Street and Street GT, I believe, that will be next up on track. They will be combined. So we'll have 2 classes on course, and it could get a little busier here in just a few moments. But, Greg, so far it's been an exciting session with our 2 Falcon spec tire categories, and moving now into our street-based categories, which, for the most part, require your car to be street legal, plated, insured, that sort of thing. They don't have to be, but they need to be able to be. And there's a lot of cars that are pushing that limit for sure. But as far as the rules and the intention of the rules go, Street GT in particular, not a lot you can do to a Street GT car. You can't put anything other than OEM aero on it, and you can't open up the motor. So you're left with a car that is under $130,000 inflation-adjusted MSRP, and you can do some suspension, you can do some brakes, and that's basically it.
And when you say suspension, you're not changing pickup points and all that.
No, yeah, certainly. Just coilovers.
Yeah,
I think it's 2-way adjustables, I think, is as far as you can go. So that's basically the limit there.
And you're going to notice a very different engine note.
Yes.
When these come out.
I'd say so. I think the displacement on some of these upcoming cars might be triple the ones we were just watching. Again, the Street GT class is all about kind of the big bore cars. You got V8s, you could have some V6s, inline 6s certainly with the Toyota GR Supra that has been a wildly popular car for this class. The BMW M2 that Jackie Ding drives. I don't think Jackie's here this weekend, but that's a car that you see a lot of V8s, a lot of V6s, inline 6s, things of the sort. And then we've got our street category, which you see a lot of turbocharged 4-cylinders, a lot of Subarus, Evos, that sort of thing. But you can see on the banners, anything with a gold banner is a street GT car. Anything with a blue banner is a street class car. There's a good mix of them there. And that was part of the shuffle with the graphic strategy this year on the cars, is to make them a bit more easily identifiable. There's Luca Barberis. You see the blue door card. He's got a blue banner on the car, and that is a street class car here in GRIDLIFE. And he's getting focused, ready to go out. He was also at Road America last week as well. So a lot of these drivers have come from Wisconsin. They go back to where they live. They repacked everything, came all the way out here. Great sticker package on this car as well.
Exactly. And keep in mind what they have to adjust to here as well. Road America, 4 miles long, massively long straights. Here, 2 1/4 miles essentially, and very, very twisty without any real long straights. And so you've just got to, obviously, any changes you can make to the car that is going to make it change direction a little bit better, because you're not necessarily in long, fast flowing corners when you're in corners like you are at a lot of them at Road America. Here, you think about it, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all of those really quick change of directions. So you need really good platform rigidity here, and get that car to bite and change direction in a hurry. And so, that's part of the challenge. If you were running at Road America now, you bring the car here, and that practice session this morning was massive.
for anybody that was at Road America.
Wanted to give a shout out to the Bimmer World guys. James Clay and crew were actually at Road America with us in track battle last week and brought their GT More car is what they call it. Basically, it's an M4 that they've really played up. Didn't start life as a GT4. It's a street car that they basically built and turbocharged, and it made north of 700 horsepower. I saw 182 on his screenshot on Facebook down the front straightaway at a street car, which is insane. We're missing James, and hopefully they join us again here in the GridLife paddock. That was a great vibe to have those guys around, and they're watching. They just tuned in on the live stream. So hi, James, and hi, crew. And hopefully we see you back as cars are getting released for our Street and Street GT categories here in qualifying 1, which is setting the stage for our podium sprint tomorrow. Be top 5 in your category. That's the goal here as cars roll on track.
Yeah, James Clay and that group are what just a superb team, but a bunch of guys. I had the pleasure to announce them for, geez, I don't know, 20 years in World Challenge competition, and also some IMSA stuff as well. And they are as passionate as it gets, and it's great to see them out there and continuing, and not just in pro racing, but to come and do time attack and have some fun with that too. That really speaks, I think, about their passion for all things BMW.
Well, they just said that they want to plan on trying GLTC next, so I'm going to hold them to that and see how they do. But that'll be a lot of fun. There's Adam Jabay, Motorsports Director here at GridLife, and doing the helmet and safety restraints check as you leave pit lane. Every time you roll out of pit road, Adam is always reminding you, check your belts, tighten your belts, check your helmet, make sure that's strapped in. And more often than not, you'll catch a driver once in a while that just forgot to tighten something up, and give yourself, as Larry Mack would say in NASCAR, pull those belts tight one more time. Make sure that you're ready for especially the heavy braking zones here. And the most visceral experience you can have in a race car is when you're hanging in the belts, and every time you hit the brakes, just your chest is on them and your back's not touching the seat because you're just on the binders. It's fun.
I mean, and the faster these cars get and the more aero they carry, the decel loads are almost far more impressive than the acceleration forces that you get. So it's exhilarating, but you want those belts to work. I've often thought that as you pull out of the pits, right, that just even though your belts are snug as can be, most drivers will reach up and just give that that tug. It's like the baseball guy in up at the plate for to bat.
Right.
And after every swing, while he's waiting, what does he do? Retightens those perfectly tight gloves.
Yep.
It's the exact same thing. It's kind of a nervous, twitchy, this is my routine thing, I'm not going to break it kind of a deal. And there you can see now, starting to see these cars really pushing the envelope, carrying that of the Corvette, just drifting all the way through turn 1, just using some serious power.
That should be Ido Waxman behind the wheel of the number 84 Chevy Corvette. It's a C6 generation Corvette. Ido has won a couple of rounds, Watkins Glen and Gingerman Raceway, both in wild fashion, slipping, sliding, dropping tires.
Yep.
It's a fun car to watch on track because it has so little aero but so much of everything else, and the braking zones are incredibly long in this car because you're just carrying so much speed and no downforce to bleed it off.
Yep.
And he's 4th in the Street GT standings with 2 less rounds than the 3 drivers ahead of him and 1 driver behind him. 78 points to Jackie Ding's 89 with 2 rounds less than even Jackie's got. So Ido is in great position to win this title should he continue on the trend that he is on, which is win everything that he enters. He won at Watkins Glen. That was his first round. He won at Gingerman Raceway, and he won at New Jersey Motorsports Park, which was our last points round. So he is on it right now in this C6.
I'll tell you what, his runs at the Glen in those sketchy conditions were just a thing of beauty and spectacular. Great fun. Here he comes completing the lap now. And coming hustling through here, and you could hear him working that car. 132.8.
Yeah, that's a good lap time to put down in the initial start. Kyle Magnussen goes second quick at a 133.798. Of course, we also have the street class on track as well, and so as the first 5, there's Brandon Hodge coming across the line, Joel Phillips, Hendricks in the 364. They come across Mike Kubiak in the 363. We're going to be switching back and forth between the timing towers. A little awkward there at the exit of turn 2 as Waxman, I think, has got the speed he could get out of that Corvette in the first lap around. There's the 555, the Joe Mielke in the Subaru. And third quick first lap around, Luca Barberis at a 1:33.740 in that street class timing and scoring as we follow them through turns 4 and 5.
Really, really good run for Barberis there. And also, I was going to say that that time in Street GT, literally 4 100s off of the track record on his first flyer.
I think that track record is doomed this weekend. If you ask me, I think
so too.
We're probably destined to smash that with the speed that we've seen out of these cars so far this season.
The track record in the street category is a 132.7 by Ben Lynn, set here last year. So within 0.8 of that right now as well. So, and again, this is not going to be the fastest session of the weekend. That's what just, I think, is really having everything looking so exciting here.
Now, onto the front straightaway. 63 of Barberis. Does he go quicker? He does not. There is a Tesla in the background, by the way. That is the 333 of Tony Barber and that Tesla Model 3, second quickest on track at the moment. As we'll check back in on Street GT and see how things are going. Kyle Magnussen at a 1:33.798 chasing Waxman, but that cut line just over a second. Now it's just under a second as Kubiak closes in on Hendricks in the 364. Keenan Prusank in the Chevy Camaro up to 7th. And Connor Gallagher in this Nissan GTR we just saw go by our timing tower is also one to watch. As there's Tony Barber in that Tesla Model 3, Greg. So much weight to lug around, but despite that, the performance of these Model 3s in all the classes that they've entered grid life competition, and they have been stout, to say the least.
They have, and I mean, yes, there's a lot of weight in the car, but the torque that these cars have, and you know, as you go to throttle, it's just instant torque, instant on. So you have to kind of change your driving just a little bit, you know, to account for that. But when you get it figured out, they just explode out of the corners, and it's really interesting to see. The problem is, of course, on a hot day, those batteries lose a little bit of their efficiency and the like. So they have to get out and do things relatively quickly on these warmer days. But these cars get around.
I think you also have to give the drivers a lot of credit because they're missing a lot of audio cues that you would normally get from engines in particular. And having a sense of speed, you're really trusting wind noise at that point, and everything is being communicated through the tires. And it really is a lot of work behind the wheel to not just completely miss a braking zone because you have no gear to run out of, right?
Exactly.
It's not like you're hitting a limiter or anything. You're just going, and you have to trust to remember where your braking zone is. Otherwise, you'll miss it by a lot. And that 5,000-pound car takes a lot of time to slow down sometimes.
Yeah, and I've chatted with some of those drivers and also guys that ride e-bikes in competition. They said one of the biggest.
Yeah, that's Gallagher in the GTR that's pulled off. Nice, good job by the way, pulling off the orange cutout. He'll keep the session green, but an issue for that twin turbo V6.
All your competitors really appreciate it when you do that and just and let the session go. But a lot, you know, drivers that make the change to an electronic vehicle or motorcycle racers that other races, when they say one of the most difficult things is they keep always reaching for an imaginary clutch. Right. You know,
yes.
Because, you know, and it isn't so much on the acceleration, you know, but it's when you get deep into a corner on the brakes and you're starting to, you know, the car is moving around or whatever, just your brain tells you, all right, I need to get down a gear.
Yep.
You know, and so you're reaching for it and it's not there. And so it's all those, I mean, there's a lot that you have to be dealing with to unlearn, essentially, to be fast in an electric vehicle.
There's Joel Phillips in a 911 working his way down through madness. And Porsches, man, if there is one vehicle that you need to be a track car and also be a reasonable daily, as far as performance goes, there's not much more you can do than one of these things in a class like Street GT in particular. We've seen these cars in both Street GT and in track mod just have an unbelievable time. So fast, so well balanced, despite their engineering being with the engine in the rear, it doesn't seem to matter. A lot of drivers that have tons of experience will tell you, yeah, GT2 RS is like the pinnacle of performance vehicles for the track. And they're certainly not a bad car to have on the road either. But Joel working his way now through the final corner and back to the start-finish line. A 35.9 is his best time so far, and he will not improve on it this time around.
Well, and you know, the interesting thing with these cars, you know, Porsche, the engineers have worked for such a long time to, even with that big lump, as they call it, sitting way in the back of the car. It's not like a mid-engine car like the IMSA Le Mans style Porsche. It's got that engine back there, so there's a huge amount of centrifugal weight back there, and so they've worked and worked and worked on the suspensions to try and null out as much of that swing as you come in the back to get the suspension to work for you. Now the other side of the coin is when it's wet, those cars are magic, because you just turn them, get them straightened out with that big lump sitting over those rear tires. They just bite and go. And to this day, you put a Porsche on a street track up against anything else, I'm voting for that.
Yeah.
Because that point and squirt thing, that's Porsche territory.
Checking back in on our street class timing and scoring. So Luca Barberis at the top. Tony Barber's been pipped for second by Joe Mielke in the 555 Subaru. And it's Mike Callaway at a 1:39.627, the last driver in. And this has been the only class so far that's actually had what I would call a kind of significant gap between in and out of the podium sprint. That's Tom Hulka, that is about 2 seconds shy of Callaway's time. So there'll be a little bit of work have to be done to get this car back in. What is going on here, Greg? This is the 660.
The cops are here.
Yeah, this is Hoback behind the wheel of this.
I love this
vehicle. And how do you not have more fun than when you're in a Crown Victoria on a racetrack?
Absolutely. Just
Rick Hoback is
obviously
the name.
got that. You've done as much as you can to the suspension, and I'm kind of impressed. I'm watching that car. I'm not seeing a whole lot of. You'd expect to see massive amounts of body roll and the like. And that car's got some pretty good platform on it. They've obviously done a lot of work on that car. The other thing that of note here in this street category is there's the biggest gap we've seen in that top 5 right now, because Barber in third at a 1:34.8, and Siegel in fourth at a 38.7.
Yeah.
So it's darn near right there, 4 seconds.
Right, and again, the podium sprint, the reason why it's significant is you're in it if you're top 5 or better, but that doesn't mean you're locked into a podium. You can go into that and have an issue and fall out of the podium despite qualifying in. The safety net is if you qualify in that top 5 and the podium sprint starts and you have a catastrophic failure or have an issue or an off or something, the worst you can finish at the weekend points is 5th.
Right.
So it's a bit of a safety net to get into it, but it doesn't guarantee you a trophy. You still have to perform. And so while Eddie Siegel and Mike Callaway are a couple seconds off of Barber, Mielke, and Barberis, there's still opportunity for a trophy should they find some more pace, some more speed, or should one of those other top 3 have issues. In street class, we tend to see some attrition over the course of the weekend with some real high-strung, really crazy turbocharged builds. There's lots of things that can go wrong in a build like that.
Well, and also, the guys that are a few seconds faster than you, they're not infallible, right? And so, they can go out and on there. And remember, when we get to the podium sprint, it's not, okay, 20 minutes, just keep lapping until you feel comfortable and go for it. It's go right now. And somebody throws the car off, whether it's first or second lap, and they don't put in a representative time. Well, even if you're maybe would be 2 seconds off of them, you kept it on the track, you can still podium. So there's a lot of incentive here. But as you said, the big nut is if you get in there, you're guaranteed a top 5.
Right, and that's huge in the weekend points. The worst you can do is 15 points, and they drop off pretty rapidly. If you finish 5th, or 15 points on the line. If you win, it's 25. There's a 10-point spread there, and only 15 more behind that. So it is important to get into that podium sprint. There's Callaway in that 194, working his way around onto the front straightaway once again in street class. And across the stripe, and no pickup for Callaway. As looks like a couple other cars come across the stripe. Checking back in on Street GT, see how things are working, and it is still Waxman up top. Hodge and Kubiak still straddling the cut line there.
I love the name of the speed shop on the side of Callaway's car. Balls Autosport. And well, yes, I know there's a T in there, but in my mind it's silent.
Right. I like that. All right, as well, still working our way down the backstretch now, and the track's getting a little quieter. It seems like a couple cars have peeled in.
I see windshield wipers on the Corvette there.
Yeah, that's peculiar. We weren't expecting any kind of rain today, but
there's a couple of clouds that are, there's a lot of blue sky, but there are a couple of clouds that are really dark. Not huge in terms of size, but just really dark. So you might be getting a sprinkle here and there, and sometimes that can be a little
disconcerting.
Off-putting,
yeah.
yes.
I mean, especially because I don't think anybody expected it to cover the whole track and be a wet day. But if you could get rain in one corner on a track this big, certainly, yeah, you could have a problem in turn 5 and not have a problem at turn 10. So it's something you'll always be chasing as a driver. But this new format kind of forces you to have to figure it out, because if it rains in the podium sprint, you can't just not do it. You have to. I mean, you don't have to do it, but you have to. If you want to win, you got to do it.
Well, and that's the thing. To me, was the big change by invoking that podium sprint concept. Is if that podium sprint happens, as you said, and the weather's not great, normally nobody goes out. It's like, well, we're not going to go any faster. Well, now speed in that one has already been established. You're in it. Now for the win, it's now become an outright competition. And that's what makes it so compelling. So you have to have some rain chops if you're going to win podium sprint.
Right. Brandon Hodge heads down the back straightaway. As far as his lap time so far, best of a 1:34.749. And just 100th off of Alex Arteat, who's back in the 17 car this week. It was in Peter Zhang's hands at Road America. And Arteat back behind the wheel of his own BMW M3.
You know what? I'm not sure exactly how much time we have left in the session, but with that big cloud, a lot of this track is now right there. You can see there's that where they pop out into the sun, but there's a lot of this track that's in shadow right now, which means that track could cool, and you might be able to find some time in that section of track. So if you're just on the cusp here, you might be able to make up a little bit of time. Like say Kubiak or Prusank. If they can, if they just find some grip in that spot, they might be able to make it. See, you're back into the shadow now.
Yeah, and tire temperature is something that's pretty critical in Street GT in particular, because as car off at China Beach,
291, I think.
Yeah, that's probably a street class car.
Yeah.
And that is Rogers behind the wheel of that car. 1:48.106 was his best time, and that's Dylan Rogers behind the wheel. And just skidded off at 4 and 5. It's an easy place to go off, Greg, and that's why that gravel is there.
Exactly. And when they say China Beach, you alluded earlier about vacationing there. It's one of those things. If you end up on that beach, it's like Hotel California. You can't leave.
No, yeah, you're there for a while.
You need some help.
Yes, and if you go in there pretty straight, you might be able to kind of drive through it and get out. But if you go in there sideways, and that's what it's designed to do.
Exactly.
And if there were folks watching the IndyCar race, well, I guess it was the IndyCar qualifying here about a month ago. It was Simon Pagenaud had a wild accident there, losing brakes and going in there sideways. And yeah, it was rolled and tumbled and did all this crazy stuff. You go, well, that doesn't look great. But Greg, the rolling dissipates energy, and it's a whole lot better than meeting a wall head-on at 200 miles an hour.
At huge speed, you bet. Yeah, that's exactly the thing. And anytime you can dissipate energy before any kind of contact, that's going to do the driver a big favor in terms of injury.
Well, on board now with Cal Fortner. Got the onboard cameras back here this week. That's always exciting to see, as this is now our street modified group that will be heading out to the racetrack here shortly. And they will likely have to sit here for just a few minutes before we turn them loose for our qualifying one for street modified.
And one of the cool things about the street modified category is you could take a car, obviously, and as it implies, you can do all kinds of things to it, or you could do what Cal does and buy a car that's pretty heavily modified right out of the factory.
Right, certainly.
And they can run together and be very competitive.
Yeah, I think we're going to take a short break while we extricate the 291 out of the gravel trap. We'll be back in just a moment.
Born on the track, bred on the mountains, raised on the podium, ready for anything and everything. Learn more about our entire line at falcontire.com.
Owning a car can be expensive. It can also be confusing. What? And when things don't go right, there's no doubt it could be frustrating. But it can also be a lot of fun. And for those reasons, FCP Hero exists. Check this out. Do you and your car a favor and head over to fcpro.com to learn more.
Hi, I'm Chris Forsberg, and when it comes to classics and high-performance cars, I only trust America's #1 racing oil, Valvoline VR1. It's built on Valvoline's long legacy in racing, so I can continue to build my own. With 2 times more zinc than the industry standard, VR1's high-performance formula is tested on the track and trusted on the road to ensure your engine is protected from metal-to-metal contact. And I use it so much, I haven't got my car on the bottle. That's why whether I'm racing or cruising, I protect everything I drive with Valvoline. Valvoline, trusted for over 150 years.
Back live from Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course for GridLife's Mid-Ohio Meet. Welcome back to a gorgeous August afternoon. Kyle Heyer joined by Greg Kramer for the NOS Energy Track Battle Qualifying 1. We had a bit of an off at the end of our Street and Street GT session. We're digging a car out of the gravel now, Greg, but Street Modified up next, qualifying for our podium sprint competition tomorrow.
Exactly, and that is such a cool revision, if you will, about the whole time attack concept. And so you still get your practice, you get your qualifying sessions. Track records can be set in any one of those sessions, but you've got to make it into the top 5 at the end of those 3 qualifying sessions, the fastest lap from any of those sessions. Then you're into the podium sprint. And I love it because it's a 1 car at a time. You can follow the car around the track, really watch what the driver's doing, see what they did right, see where they maybe lost a tenth or 2, and it's 2 laps. So, it isn't that they only get 1 and done. They can, if they have a little bit of a moment on the first lap, be able to correct that and go. But it is really exciting because you can just focus on that 1 car and really see what they're doing on that lap.
It reminds me a lot of NASCAR qualifying, how it used to be 2 laps. You get a banker in lap 1, and then you push real hard lap 2 and hope you don't go off. That's tomorrow, though. Today, as you mentioned, it's qualifying 1. You get basically a 20-minute session to be in the top 5 in your category, and you'll get 2 more chances to move your way into that top 5 tomorrow morning and early afternoon. So the cars are lined up here just waiting for the extrication of the 291 of Dylan Rogers out of the gravel trap at turn 5. That car just slid off there. It's just a really easy corner to make that mistake in and just get the braking a little wrong. And once you're off the pavement, the track kind of falls away. It's the China Beach is a hole in the ground over there, basically. You fall into the hole, and it's just really hard to get yourself out. There's a good overhead look at turn 1 from high above. Such a fast corner, but look how narrow it gets on exit, Greg, as the pit exit kind of converges, and then the run all the way up to turn 2. That's the keyhole up there before you begin that long stretch down the kink, the bottom right of the screen into turn 4.
Yep, and that run out of 1, there's this little undulation. You exit 1, it climbs just a little bit, then it drops, and this is all subtle, and then it continues that climb. You get up into turn 2, and you can see it from this angle right here. As you turn into turn 2, the track falls away, and it's noticeable. It's not like it falls off a cliff. But the minute it does that, when you don't have banking, it actually goes off camber where the track tilts away from you. As you're applying power, you are on a tightrope all the way through there, but you've got to get through there fast because that longest straight on this track is what follows through the kink and then into the area we're talking about where that car is off right now. And you talked about it, turn 4, as you come into it, there's banking on that corner, but if you drop a tire off the outside of that banking, everything falls away from you, and so you can run really good speed through that corner, and you can actually ramp the outside. We've seen outside passes made there. It works, but if you overstep it, then you're sliding, you're in the gravel, and it's really tough once you miss that corner to be able to save it and not get into that gravel.
Yeah, the last couple of tracks we've been at for our festival tour, think back to Watkins Glen International back in the end of or the beginning of April, basically. End of April. It was almost May at that point. Watkins Glen has a lot of paved runoff and places you can escape to if you go off. Then it was Gingerman Raceway, which doesn't have paved runoff but has a lot of grass in the runoff area. This place, there's no pavement. It's all either grass or gravel.
Right.
And you can't really push the limits beyond the edges of the track or you will get stuck, and hopefully you don't hit anything. And thankfully that's what the gravel traps are there for, is to stop the momentum of the car before you get there. And doing its job at turn 4 just takes a little bit to get a car out of that gravel once it is in. But we are probably just moments away from rolling cars again. And as I say that, I see cars physically leaving pit lane. So Street Mod is going to be on track now. This is our one of our fastest street-based categories, Greg. This is where you get into cars that have 600-plus horsepower, pretty large aerodynamics. You can have 2 aero devices on the car, a wing and a front splitter, or a front splitter and a diffuser, but you can't have all 3. So that's part of the rule set here in Street Mod, and get cars with all sorts of different engine swaps and layouts and drivetrains and all sorts of things. It's a fun category to watch, and they're going to get their own session, unlike the Street GT and Street Combined we just watched. This is all street modified cars heading on track now.
And just to give you a little perspective, folks, the top 3 in this morning's practice, when everybody was in the pool at the same time, essentially, for a large chunk of it, that there are unlimited, track mod, then street mod would be the order in terms of performance, quote-unquote, potential, right? In that top 3 in this morning's practice was an unlimited car, a track mod car, and a street mod car. But the street mod car wasn't third. It was second. That's how fast these guys are. And that was Ryan Matthews, and he uncorked a 1:30.400 second lap. So these street mod cars are really, really fast. And that, just to give you an understanding, that 1:30.4 right now is literally 3/10 off of the RS Motors record that has stood since 2020.
Yeah, it's about time for that record to fall, I think. So I think we might see it. Cal Fortner on track now, the number 14 Mercedes-AMG GTS. We've got an onboard shot from him as we head off into turn number 11. Again, you mentioned earlier, starting with the car that already has a lot of pedigree for racing and track driving in it is a really good base platform for Street Mod. On the other side of that, you get cars like Dewey's Boogeyman, which is a Subaru Impreza that's seen basically everything done to it but changing the car. It's a pretty different way to attack this street mod class, and both of them I think are going to be in contention in the podium sprint later this weekend.
And this is what is so enjoyable about this. Look at Cal. They're working that wheel coming through turn 1 and really starting his first flyer. So those tires might not quite be there, but you don't want to waste time. You want to be able to get out and put a lap in, especially if you're one of those that gets out of the pits early. You want to hustle it. So,
that is Dewey DeWitt on the driver's right side of the back straightaway. Looks like he's got a problem, but Cal Fortner blows on by on the left and speeds north of 150 miles an hour, hard onto the brakes. And this inside of this car is dressed up like Lewis Hamilton. It's got all sorts of gadgetry in it.
It does.
It's shiny and sparkly, and look at the interior of this thing. That's the coolest looking race car interior I've ever seen.
That is pretty amazing. Yeah, passenger seat, the whole thing in there. And what's cool about this car, this is, of course, a full paddle shift.
Whoa! You see him chase the car over the hill there,
absolutely. Greg? And that's the thing. On this track, with those abrupt signal changes, with those abrupt apex changes, you've got to anticipate them. And know, as I'm cresting this, car's going to get light. Be ready to make that correction. Don't anticipate it to the point you jump it, but you've got to be ready for it here. And
got some audio now. You can hear the tires. Great sounds from that bi-turbo V8, and to the top of the street mod board, at least for now and no longer. Mike Amick beats him by 2/10.
And Amick has just been wicked fast this year, hasn't he, in that Subaru Impreza, that number 6. He has really put up some numbers. At 1:31.519 on his fast flyer, nips Fortner by a couple tenths there.
Yep.
And Amick and Fortner, we've seen them do an awful lot of dueling this year.
They certainly have, and Street Mod has been a war zone this season as far as wins go. And talk about points, because we've kind of covered that for the other categories so far. Michael Amick is your points leader. He's got 5 rounds in the books, his best 4, 91 points, to Kyle McHugh's 82. Kyle McHugh runs third right now as far as this session goes so far. So that's your top two in the championship standings. Then it's Dewey DeWitt with 72 points, a little ways back, but Dewey only has 3 rounds in the books, and he's also gearing up for this event, and I think he's doing one other. Okay. I would predict that that will be Lime Rock Park, perhaps. So Dewey's going to get his 4 rounds in, and Dewey's had a pretty strong run. He won at Midwest Festival, which is the first time he'd been on the top of the podium in a while at that event, so good to see him up there as Mike Almick now works his way into turn number 11. Almick's campaigned this chassis, this car, for a couple years now, and just dialing it, and it is truly a class leader at this stage of GridLife's history.
And one of the things on a track like this car should be really good because it's the shorter the wheelbase on a busier track, the better that car will change direction. Long wheelbase cars are at their best in a long duration corner because they're just more steady, but it does take a little bit more to get them to change direction. Oh, we got somebody moving really slow at the apex of 2.
Ooh, yep.
And I'm hoping that that was...
Oh, there's a yellow there. That's why it's covering for Dewey, who's pulled off in a pretty safe spot, but I think the driver couldn't see yet what was.
That's what it was.
The incident was. So I think next time by will be a little quicker through there. But it is a standing yellow, which is not as urgent as a waving yellow, which indicates that there's something immediately that you need to be concerned with. As we have a look at Jamie Santos now headed down the back straightaway. And it looks like he might already be kind of off of a flyer.
Yep.
But he's the first odd man out as far as the advancing goes for the podium sprint, down about 0.8 of a second from the 307.
Almick right now at that 131.5, as we said, that's a bit off of the outright track record in this category here. They have records for the different drive configurations as well, so that's part of it.
As we do get a black flag all, and I imagine that will be to go get Dewey from over by turn 2. And you mentioned the records being by drivetrain, and they are there's another car off actually. This is what the black flag's for.
Yeah.
I was going to say Dewey was in a pretty good spot.
He looked like he was in a exactly.
Yeah, but this is going to be for a different car. But as far as the records go, we mentioned 1 point bonus that you get for the track record. That is for each drivetrain as well. So if you enter in an all-wheel drive car, and usually the records are set by rear-wheel drive, that's a free point every round that you're going to get by resetting that track record. So we do records by drivetrain, but we do wins by classes and points by classes as well.
And so right now Almick is not too far off of the RS Motors record, but Jackie Ding's outright record and in rear-wheel drive at a 128.8 still out there just a little bit. We just had a shot there of one of the corner marshals or corner workers here. Take an opportunity here to give them a big shout out, obviously, for these events. They are volunteers for the most part, and they come out there. They're as passionate about this sport as anybody out there driving. They may just not have the wherewithal to be able to drive, or the talent, or whatever, to be able to get out there and do it. But they absolutely love the sport, and it's not just out on corners. I mean, they're in tech, they're in scoring, they're in all these different specialties. Obviously, the ones that are out in the corners are the ones out in the weather, out in harm's way, providing key information to the drivers via flags, and they're the eyes and ears of race control around a long road course where you cannot have one person up on a tower that can see the entire track. So, as I said, they're paying their own way, they're paying their own travel. And all of that, maybe even probably their own lodging, and the one thing they do get is a lunch and a meal at the end of the day. So big shout out to them for coming out and being a part of the paddock vibe at GridLife.
It certainly takes a village to put on a GridLife event, and that's not only the staff that's obviously, as you mentioned, paid to work here, but those that are volunteering their time and efforts to make it go around. It's not easy to put on these events.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people involved in every stage of it, especially now with this festival tour. The GridLife staff, Charlie and Tricia, that put together the logistics for these events. It has gotten a lot harder the last couple of years, a lot more stuff to move around. And we have to give a big shout out also to the partners that are here in the paddock with us this weekend. Advance Auto Parts, Sunoco is here, Toyo Tires is here, NOS Energy is here, Falcon is here. Just all the people that help this series continue and grow, and also bring a big paddock presence. The paddock feels just more full and more energetic with all that stuff down there, and giving something for the spectators to wander around in as well.
Well, as you said, it's an opportunity to go try some NOS, go learn a bit about Falcon tires, all of that kind of activation opportunities at the track, and that makes it special. And so you get to see some great stuff on track, and then you can go explore in the pits and paddock. And that's one of the things. If you're here, get into that paddock, wander around. Obviously, if somebody's thrashing on a car, give them a little bit of space. But if not, they'd love to chat with you and tell you all about their program and what they're doing.
So 2 cars getting towed back to the paddock right now. One of them is Dewey DeWitt. The other, I didn't quite catch the number on that car, but it was an MX-5. And MX-5s in street mod probably souped up with a turbocharger or something to get the speed out of it. Here's another thing as we get a view from around the racetrack, the spectators here. Thanks for joining us here this weekend. Yes. And just what a great track to spectate from. Turn 4, 5, and 6. That is one of my favorite places to hang out at racetracks in North America.
Yeah, up at the top of Madness there, you bring the chair, you find that little bit of shade, and you just kick back and watch the cars as they come from the highest speed section of the track through one of the trickiest corners. That's why they call that section Madness over there, and it's just great. But anywhere you go, out by turn 9, up in the keyhole, there's a huge fan base that just loves sitting up in that keyhole. It's a great spectating track, and that's the great thing about road course. You'll often hear some of the detractors say, well, you'll only see one part of the track. And it's like, well, only if you stay in one part of the track. And you don't have to do that at a road course. It's not like, you're at a track where you bought a ticket and that seat is the only place you can go. Go explore. Go see what the cars are doing in each of these different sections of this track. That's the magic of road racing.
It really is the magic of road racing, and we do it a lot all year. We've got 12 rounds of competition, 6 of the Festival Tour, and this is round 4 of that Festival Tour. Lime Rock Park up next in 2 weeks, and then WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, October 20th to 22nd. First time Drift will be at Laguna Seca on the full course in a display capacity. We'll have GLTC there with the season finale, and the NOS Energy Track Battle Championship. Very exciting stuff.
And brand new pavement there as
yes.
well.
Yeah.
And I was out there for Moto America. It's fast.
Yeah, I bet it is.
It's fast, yeah.
So that's all exciting. The stuff as Street Mod heads back out on the racetrack here. This will likely be a slightly shorter session because we are running out of track time today, Greg. We've got a race still left to do. That's coming up next after our Track Mod and Unlimited group. And there's one more drift session scheduled for today as well. So we'll see where they start chopping corners off of to make the the day work. But we'll head down towards the start-finish line and start all over again. There are 12 Street Mod cars that have taken lap times so far. And again, only about 0.8 of a second between the 307 and 82. That's that cut line differential as it stands.
Yeah, the 121 of Matthews there. It went out, came back in, and did that time was a very slow lap of 420. So work to do for Ryan in that after-dark speed Chevy Corvette. So obviously that downtime here if it was a problem that was addressable in pit lane, may be able to get him back out and have him put in a more representative time.
Mike Almec again, also the quickest car so far here in Street Mod. And you mentioned we're not far off of a record. Is that what I heard? Street Modified all-wheel drive. You're right. RS Motors set that back in 2020 at a 130.121. And Almec is not all that far off of that against tomorrow morning with the cooler temperatures. I certainly think we could see that fall this weekend, along with all the other track records that have already fallen. GLTC Sunday Cup have already gotten blown away by about a second in either of those categories. So pretty cool to watch. So,
yeah, pretty impressive.
Laps beginning again for our Street Modified category. And again, if you just joined us, you're watching the NOS Energy Track Battle Championship. Qualifying 1, Street Mod is now, and then Track Mod and Unlimited will share the track shortly.
Yeah, qualifying 1 of 3, just to make sure everybody's aware of that. This is one mean-looking beast.
Yeah, RX-7.
That is a sharp-looking car.
The 818 car, which I think is under the Toyo tent for the folks here that want to check it out on site. And it is a mean-looking car.
I don't think it made it out prior to that stoppage, so this is really crucial.
Right, so imagine you have an issue tonight and you can't get out tomorrow morning. You're losing an entire session. This is the banker session, right?
Yes.
Get a lap in early in the weekend before things go wrong, and hope that you don't have to, improve on it. Hopefully, it'll get you into that top 5 as is. I think if you're Almec or Fortner, you're feeling pretty good about getting your banker lap in.
Yep.
but don't give away opportunity to improve or learn more.
Ever. Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind, tomorrow morning will probably be the quickest one. So if you've been having some sort of an issue, you know, even if, like right here, you're not maybe going to be able to get out and be at full speed. If you're chasing something, at least get out in this session, run a few laps, and find out, did the fix take? You know, not okay. Now we can start tweaking on things, but get out there, just get some laps in. You know, for the driver, get a little bit of a feel for the track, and try and get that car ready for tomorrow. But you know, get out there. There's no substitute for seat time.
No, and that's why classes like Sunday Cup are so popular.
Exactly.
Because you spend most of your time driving and less of your time fixing, which is
Yeah.
you know, part of it. But you get into street mod and you really can build the car that you want to build, and you're going fast, right? And you keep pushing the limits of the rules and end up in track mod, and then you end up in the unlimited category with, you know, the craziest builds that you can think of. The only requirement, it's got 4 tires, fenders over those tires, and a roof on the car, and it's a VIN number. That's really after that, it's fair game.
So what we were just talking about with Matthews, he just jumped to second.
He certainly did. And Amick went quicker also at a 130.693, edging ever closer to that track record we were just talking about.
Yeah, Matthews had nothing prior to that session and went back out and just uncorked a flyer and jumps to second. Fortner's now third.
Matthews is owed one also. He was the fastest at Carolina Motorsports Park, if you recall, in the podium sprint, had an issue with his differential where it was locking and doing something funny.
Yep.
He did not get the result he deserved. I think he finished third there that weekend. He is owed a victory here in Grid Life after running as well as he did there in that podium sprint. The new format taking away what would have previously been a weekend victory. So I'm sure he's out here hunting for a little bit more. And he was at Road America last weekend as well, just having fun. And this weekend it's game on again. And he'll go out there and try to pip Mike Amick.
Well, I think what he just did bodes well for it, assuming he makes it into the podium sprint, for him to be able to go out, not knowing how much time is left here, go out, leave the pits, drive around, put in a flyer, and jump up into second that fast. Really tells you that, all right, he gets that car right. He is definitely going to be in the hunt here. Having a look here at the 317, that BMW of Mr. Turner doing a nice job right now, sitting in the 10th spot. Needs to find a little bit of time.
And there is that car we were looking at, that RX-7, is actually a track mod car. So if I pull up our track mod stacker, we should see it's Grunwald in the 818 there, at 158.837. Now, I think the reason why this car is running, I was told that there was one car that was running with 2 drivers, and that it was something you could do previously in the old format, because the driver could just go in a slower session and go out with the other group. But because we organize by class now, and you're all together, it doesn't work. So they had to split them up, and that's why he's running where he is now.
Gotcha. All right. Checker flag is out on this the street mod group. So next group coming up, as you said, should be that that's one pretty car.
It really is. And RX-7, something about those cars, you can really mold those things to be as cool as you want, right? And they're nice looking cars stock, but you put a nice body kit and wide fenders on those things, and they certainly look the part. But qualifying 1 for Street Modified is complete here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, as we get prepared now for our final track battle session here of the day. And in just a few minutes, Greg, I'm actually going to turn the mic over to Aaron Lichty, who's sitting beside me, and I'm going to zip on over to the grid to get prepared for our GLTC race, but I'll hang around for a few more minutes before I begin that trek over there. It is a little bit of a funky process to get back across the track.
Yes, it
is. So I will do that soon and get prepared. I'm turning over some duties back to Eric in the stream trailer so that we can handle that, but going to try something a little different for the GLTC show and see how it goes.
That's what GLTC and Grid Life as a whole is all about.
Look the stamp and send it, and we'll see if it meets the recipient when it's supposed to meet it. But great aerial views here from Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Look at the scenery here. It is absolutely gorgeous. Great day outside. Just these aerial shots just really show off the beauty of this track.
It is. I mean, it's you know, in the heartland, I mean, is the best way to put it, and it's absolutely beautiful part of the country here. And this track, you know, was just carved right out of the natural terrain. Nothing was created, and you know, it is a true driver's track. And what this does is it gives you a great look at the track layout in total, but what it doesn't do is give you a look at the elevation that is here. And don't discount that when you look at this place. Go, that looks pretty flat. Yeah, no, it's not. And there's great challenges to it. One of the things that I love from this look, and we're going to pay a little tribute here, is you notice that the roof of every significant building out there is red. Well, Jim Truman was the founder and CEO of Red Roof Inns and Red Roof Corporation. And so when he bought this track, every roof was painted or made red, and that has just continued as a long-lasting homage to the great man.
Yeah, what a really cool tribute there, and it's certainly a recognizable feature of this track. As track mod and unlimited cars are rolling out to the grid here in just a moment's time. And these cars are some of the wildest, craziest, and fastest cars that we'll see. You mentioned earlier some of the street mod cars were pretty quick also, and honestly, some of the Club TR cars are pretty quick around here in a lap. But this is where the rules start to, the rule book gets shorter and shorter.
Yeah, exactly.
The entire TrackBattle rule book is like, I don't know, 20 or 30 pages, and only about half a page is dedicated to unlimited. And it's basically just safety rules at that stage, which there is a rule in street modified and above, basically, that if you're within 107% of the fastest car, you need to have a roll cage and all that sort of stuff. But here's one of the cars that takes that to the extreme in every physical surface possible.
Absolutely.
Dallas Reed, which I always say that it looks like he went to Home Depot and pulled something off every shelf and took a welder to it and strapped it to the car. But to his credit, that thing rips that RX-8, or what's left of it underneath, I should say.
Yeah, it's impressive. And one of the things that I think is really creative is that front wing that's raised off of the ground by a couple of feet. And the reason for that I like that is when you get into the summer and it's really warm out, you know, whatever the ambient is, the track temperature can be anywhere from 20 to 40 degrees above that. And so when it's really warm out there, as that track temperature gets hot, the air that sits just above that track temperature gets really hot. Well, air, the hotter it gets, thins out, right? And so aero and that splitter, that it's still a nice splitter underneath there, but a lot of cars you see that wing down really low. Well, when it's really warm out and that track surface is hot, that front wing gets less effective. You raise that wing up a little bit, there it is.
Oh boy, here's one of my favorite cars.
Yes.
This is a four-rotor RX-7 that makes some of the best noises that you could ever hear at a racetrack. And it used to be really oppressively loud. I think it's tuned down a little bit as far as the audio levels go. But this car, we just have to listen to it for a second next time it rolls by the shop, because it is just a spectacular sounding automobile.
Yeah, the howl that comes out of this thing is
that's just great.
Few sounds like that. Yeah. And when you consider that when Mazda was, there's a fair amount of smoke coming out of the back there. We'll have to watch that.
That's probably normal.
That could be with the Wankel, yeah.
Yeah.
But when these, you know, when they had you know, the cars, the prototype cars racing in IMSA, the original IMSA, they were 3 rotors.
Right.
This thing's 4.
Yeah.
So
how many rotating objects can you stick under the hood of an RX-7? Let's keep pushing that limit.
Exactly.
So as they roll around to take their first laps, we'll see if we can get. Of course, Grunewald already has a time on the board from earlier, but this, I believe, we got Chris Boersma coming. He's a track mod competitor as he rolls out of turn 13 all the way from Canada across the stripe. And let's see what Boersma can lock down. A 131.305. That's not a bad time at all to start things off. And
it runs out of the same program that Houghton does, it looks like, huh?
Yeah, K-tuned on the side of the car.
Yeah.
But Greg, as this session gets underway, I think I'm going to toss some virtual keys over to Aaron Lichty here for a little while and fill in for me for Time Attack for a bit, because I got to run down to the grid for GLTC. So, Greg, I'll let you chat with Aaron for a bit about Track Mod and Unlimited, and I'll see you guys in a little bit.
All right, man. Have fun down there.
I will.
And remember, folks, what everybody is trying to do here is get into that top 5 in their respective classes in each of these 2 sessions, or 2 classes, Unlimited and Track Mod, so that they're in that advance into that podium sprint championship round. and that's why the graphics right now say advancing and chasing. Aaron, hey, thanks. It's nice of you to come up here. It's been a while since I've been able to see you. And, of course, hate that you're up here because that means you've had a problem and you're not going to be able to race this weekend. But really appreciate you coming up here. Obviously, you race in the GLTC championship, but there's a lot of fascination here in this track battle, especially now that it's the NOS Energy Track Battle Championship in this time attack format.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I like that these guys have to be on track, putting in lap after lap, that it's not good enough to just put down one fast lap in the day, and I think that's a real challenge for these cars because the performance and the reliability is so marginal when you're after every last tenth of a second. And so I think a lot of these guys have had to rethink the way they approach these sessions, the way they run these cars. I mean, it's a hot part of the day right now. Normally fast laps wouldn't be set during this session, but these guys are still out there just pounding them in.
And then, the thing that I love about it is that, previously, if there was some weather on the last day, it was like, why would you go out? You're not going to go faster. Well, if you're in that podium sprint, if you want to win the weekend, you've got to go out. So it just really makes you have to be out there and turn laps in every session and keep chasing speed, because when you get to that podium sprint, then it becomes really crucial, because then you get 2 laps. That's it.
Absolutely. I think the drivers and the cars have to be more dynamic within this new framework, and that's an interesting thing for time attack, which I think a lot of people just want to see the outright pace of the car and speed, and some might argue that's a little bit one-dimensional. I think we're still seeing great speed. We're still seeing incredibly fast cars, but we're really seeing what these drivers have when we put them in these conditions. Hot, slick track, changing conditions. I mean, these engines have got to be running warm, and we're still seeing the lap times drop.
Absolutely. I mean, we've already seen a couple of track records here on this warm afternoon. Tomorrow morning should be just superbly fast.
Oh yeah,
and can't wait for that to unfold. But the other part of it too is, a lot of these guys would go out, they'd run a lap, 2 laps, get the car ready, and then put in a flyer, and then that'd be it anyway. Yep. So you can still do that if you can get a really good lap quickly. You don't have to run the whole session. Yeah. Just get into that top 5.
Yep.
And that's so whatever your preference is, it can play out. But what I love when you get to the podium sprint, then unlike being able to go out in a 20-minute session and drive around for 3-4 laps, kind of get your groove on and all that, and then go, okay, now I'm ready. It's like the tip of the sword right now.
Put up or shut up.
Yeah, and that is a real competition.
Oh, absolutely.
And some of these cars, I like this one coming through here. Bronson McNamara in that Mazda MX-5. Look at the front end, the hood of that. Right off you go, okay, this guy's done some really creative engineering.
It's got some old Can-Am vibes.
That's what it does, exactly.
It's like an inverted McLaren M8,
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It really is.
Heck of a lap earlier. So racing GLTC, I don't get to see these guys run as much, and that's another thing I love about the new format is, in the old format, they'd run in the morning, we're busy with GLTC, and I may get to drop over mid-afternoon and take a peek at the track, and none of these wild cars would be out there. And so it's just cool for me to even get to see these guys on track. So I'm a big fan of the new format. From what I think, I think most of the guys competing in it are as well.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too, because it just adds that truly competitive element to it. And I think racers are racers,
Yep.
and you want to have that carrot to be able to go after and get after it here. Right now, it's DeKoning up on top at a 1 minute 29.854, and doing some really stout laps there in this track mod category. But he certainly has some pressure here. Boersma a little bit off at a 31.5, and then McNamara here at a 131.9. Then there's a big jump from that 3rd to 4th right now at a 38.0 at this stage. So they have some work to do at this point.
Absolutely. But look at this chasing category. What do we have? 5-6 tenths there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty tight right there.
Yeah, really close. And we've seen that in most of the other classes as well today. The margin from that guy in 5th, and then the next 2 or 3 is half a second or 8 tenths. So it doesn't take much.
And it doesn't get any easier the longer you're on track in this heat. But I wouldn't count any of these guys out from throwing one together. It just takes one corner to make up that time deficit, that's for sure.
And as we're watching these guys go around, hopefully that's just somebody letting somebody go. I think it's exactly what it was. One of the things that I was going to ask you, and that's one of the interesting creative cars out there. I think that's the Tesla Performance 3.
I don't want to show my ignorance, but I want to know what the hood vent's for.
Yeah.
I'm assuming like there's some sort of cooling in the front of the cars, but I honestly don't know what it is.
I think there must be to keep that those batteries
exactly.
cool.
Yeah.
And of course, the hotter it is outside, the tougher it is for an electronic vehicle to keep the batteries cool and thus keep their max efficiency.
Yeah. So I wonder what I wish I knew more about it. I wonder what the strategy is with this cool down lap that he's doing and what he's working up towards. Might just be cooling the tires down.
I was just thinking that because they're so heavy.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, we got a car off.
Oh, that's at the
he's moving.
Looked like maybe did a big tank slapper off the top of 5 there.
Probably trying to find that last
like
half second.
That's what makes this racetrack is just something else.
I love
this
it.
is a
It's
true
fun.
driver's
Yeah, it hurts me a little bit to be up here, but actually I'm pretty excited to be up here. I was in a little bit of a glum mood when the car broke, but when Kyle invited me up here and he said you were going to be here, I said, well, that seems like a once in a lifetime opportunity, so I'm really happy to be here.
And for me too.
Yeah,
for me, because I'm usually talking about you out there. So, have your expertise up here for this GLTC race is going to be absolutely fascinating. Talking about this track just a little bit.
Sure.
I've always thought this is, maybe the definitive driver's track because, that horsepower run from 2 to 4, nowhere near as long as most other tracks.
Yep.
But here it's not so much about top speed, it's about corner speed. But it's got so many challenges to it. What's your favorite portion of this track?
I think I like the up and over into Thunder Valley the best. It's difficult to balance the car in the braking zone. It's difficult to balance the car over the hill. It takes some bravery. You're on the throttle before you can see the corner exit. I think that's a thrill for most drivers. It's definitely an easy place to make a mistake. But I always try to think about the corners that kind of separate the the amateurs from the pros, or however you want to characterize that. And I feel like that's one that stands out for me. Even personally, it's an opportunity to excel, but it's also an opportunity to make big mistakes, and it's a personal challenge. I think the parity of racing on this track is great. Like you said, the straightaways aren't as long, but if you think about the architecture of the track, you have 3 straightaways in the first 2 corners, right? You have the front straightaway, you have 1 corner, you have the run of the keyhole, you have 1 more corner, and then you have a long straightaway. And so it's not as simple as just having a long straightaway, but we'd be disingenuous if we didn't act like some straight line speed helps in the first half of the track. But then we have 10 corners with really not much of a straightaway to speak of. And so it does have this split personality where cars with different strengths can kind of yo-yo back and forth. And I think that makes the racing fun to watch here.
Well, I was watching some of the GLTC stuff from last year here, and I think it was the second race of the weekend. Swenson and O'Gorman went through from turn 4 to almost up into Thunder Valley side by side for like 3 laps in a row. Corvette and an S2000. I mean, this track does indeed promote that. And I'm glad you made that comment about Thunder Valley, because I was telling Kyle earlier, I think that's one of the most underrated corners in America. Because when people talk about great corners, that never comes up, and it's like high-speed blind approach.
Everybody talks about madness, but Thunder Valley is like high-speed madness.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the other thing that I absolutely love about this track is, with so many of the apexes right on the crest of these quick elevation up and drops, you've got to anticipate what the car's going to do when you get light over there. And that's what keeps this race, to me, so fascinating.
Absolutely.
All right, looking at the Unlimited class right now, it's the 338 of Pizzellis at a 129.382. So great run for him. 52 Gardner sits second at a 131.6, so not too far off. Then only 18 100ths of a second off of Gardner. Reed in the number 22. That is Dallas Reed in that Mazda RX-8 sits third. Then Bertulis is fourth, and 266. Bassett is fifth at this stage. So that's your top 5 in Unlimited. We're going to wrap up this coverage here of the NOS Energy Drink GridLife Track Battle Time Attack Championship. Qualifying session 1, 2 more tomorrow, and then podium sprint will be coming up. But we're wrapping this up. Next is going to be GridLife Touring Cup. That's coming up, race number 1, in just a moment here at Mid-Ohio.
Born on the track, bred on the mountains, raised on the podium, ready for anything and everything. Learn more about our entire line at falcontire.com.
Owning a car can be expensive. It can also be confusing. What? And when things don't go right, there's no doubt it could be frustrating. But it can also be a lot of fun. And for those reasons, FCP Euro exists. Check this out. Do you and your car a favor and head over to fcpro.com to learn more.
Hi, I'm Chris Forsberg, and when it comes to classics and high-performance cars, I only trust America's #1 racing oil, Valvoline VR1. It's built on Valvoline's long legacy in racing, so I can continue to build my own. With 2 times more zinc than the industry standard, VR1's high-performance formula is tested on the track and trusted on the road to ensure your engine is protected from metal-to-metal contact. And I use it so much, I haven't got my car on the bottle. That's why whether I'm racing or cruising, I protect everything I drive with Valvoline. Valvoline, trusted for over 150 years.